The library was always silent, that kind of silence that hums, heavy with secrets. Books whispered to each other when no one was looking, and among them sat Evelyn, the head librarian, 34, graceful but guarded, with the kind of beauty that came from restraint. Her world was quiet, predictable, safe, until Clara walked in. She was 22, with messy curls and eyes like spring after a storm. A literature student looking for part-time work. When Evelyn first saw her fumbling with the application form, ink-smudged, nervous smile, something shifted. She couldn't explain it, but it was as if someone had cracked open a window inside her chest after years of still air. From the first week, Clara was everywhere, laughing softly while organizing shelves, humming as she wiped the dust from forgotten books. Evelyn pretended not to notice. She told herself it was unprofessional, that she was simply being observant. But every day, it became harder to believe her own lies. One afternoon, the rain poured outside like it was trying to drown the world. The library was nearly empty. Evelyn was cataloging returned novels when Clara appeared beside her, drenched, cheeks pink from the cold. "I forgot my umbrella," she said, shivering slightly. Evelyn's fingers brushed hers as she handed her a towel, and it felt like static had come alive. "Thank you, Miss Hart," Clara murmured. "Evelyn," she corrected before she could stop herself. The girl smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that reached her eyes. They spent the rest of the storm shelving books side by side, their shoulders almost touching. Every time their hands grazed, Evelyn's pulse jumped. The world had shrunken down to that narrow aisle. The smell of old pages, rain tapping glass, and Clara's breath catching when Evelyn reached too high for a book. Later, after the rain stopped, Clara lingered by the door. "You make this place feel alive," she said softly. Evelyn didn't reply. She couldn't. Words would have betrayed too much. That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Clara's face in the reflection of the rain-soaked window, kept hearing her voice. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like longing. And deep down, she knew this was the beginning of something she wouldn't be able to contain.
Weeks passed, and the unspoken tension grew like ivy between them, beautiful and suffocating. Evelyn told herself she was in control, that her feelings were nothing but admiration. But every glance lingered longer. Every conversation edged closer to something dangerous. One evening, Clara stayed late to help close. The sky outside was a bruised purple, the light fading through stained glass windows. Evelyn was reshelving a stack of poetry books when she noticed Clara standing by the reading table, absorbed in a tattered volume of Neruda. "I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees," Clara read aloud, her voice trembling just enough to make it intimate. Evelyn froze. "That's a beautiful line," she managed. Clara looked up, eyes glistening. "It's how I feel when I'm here." Something in the way she said "here" made Evelyn's throat tighten. The air between them thickened, charged. Evelyn walked over slowly, heart pounding as if the air itself might shatter from the wrong move. When she reached her, Clara closed the book gently, fingers trembling. "Evelyn, why do you always pull away?" It was the question she'd been avoiding for weeks. Evelyn's hand brushed a strand of hair from Clara's face. "Because I don't trust myself around you," she admitted. Clara stepped closer. "Then don't." The space between them dissolved. For a moment, the world went silent, only their breathing, ragged and unsure. Evelyn's hand found Clara's cheek, tracing the soft warmth there. It was like touching light for the first time after years in darkness. They didn't kiss, not yet, but something more powerful happened. Permission. The look they shared said everything they couldn't. Later that night, Evelyn sat alone at her desk long after Clara had left, the scent of her perfume still hanging in the air. She opened the poetry book Clara had been reading, and there, between the pages, was a small note. "You can't hide from what you feel forever." Her hands shook. She wanted to laugh, to cry, to burn the note and memorize it all at once. The next morning, Clara called in sick. Evelyn told herself not to care, but the library felt empty without her. Each corner reminded her of what she was trying not to want. That evening, she finally drove to Clara's apartment, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out reason. When Clara opened the door, pale, in a loose sweater, eyes rimmed red, Evelyn forgot every rule she'd ever followed. "You shouldn't be here," Clara said softly. "I know, but I had to see you." And then Clara stepped aside.
Inside, the room smelled of chamomile and paint. There were canvases leaning against the walls, half-finished, messy, alive, like her. Clara sat on the couch, hugging her knees, while Evelyn stood at the window, staring at the city lights. "I didn't mean to make things complicated," Clara whispered. "You didn't," said Evelyn, voice low. "I did that all on my own." They sat in silence for a long time, the kind that holds everything words can't. Finally, Evelyn turned. "I've spent my whole life avoiding the things that make me feel too much. You made me realize how lonely that was." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "So what now?" Evelyn crossed the room, kneeling in front of her. "Now," she said softly, "I stop pretending." Their lips met, hesitant, trembling, then desperate. It wasn't a kiss of lust, it was release. Years of restraint melted in one heartbeat. Clara's hands tangled in Evelyn's hair, pulling her closer, as if to make up for all the nights they'd spent in silence. When they finally pulled apart, Evelyn laughed, a sound that felt like freedom. "I thought love like this was something that happened to other people." Clara smiled, brushing tears from her cheeks. "Maybe we just had to find the right story." Weeks later, the library felt different, brighter. They didn't hide, not anymore. Their connection was quiet, but real. A shared smile behind the counter, a hand brushed during cataloging. The kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to be true. Sometimes, when the day ended and the last visitor left, Evelyn would lock the doors and find Clara waiting in the reading nook, curled up with a book. She'd sit beside her, fingers intertwining, the world outside fading away. And in that small corner of the library, surrounded by words that outlived centuries, they built something new, a story that belonged only to them, a story that didn't whisper anymore. It sang.